It's August of 2021 and I've just gotten back from my suspension, which lasted for just over a month. And so I've made a promise to myself that for the rest of the year, I'm not going to get in any trouble whatsoever. It's a quiet Thursday morning like any other. I'm walking into the library with my close mate Josh and my girlfriend at the time. We walk down the stairs, we take our seats and we get to work straight away. Although there wasn't really much work going on, to be fair, it was mostly just us sitting around talking shit. Okay, so about 10 minutes goes by, we're still talking with each other, disengaged with our work. And that's when this kid who, for the sake of this story, we'll call Johnson, walks into the library. Now, Johnson and Josh had some sort of beef with each other in the past. I couldn't exactly tell you what it was over, but they really didn't like each other. Okay, so as soon as Johnson walks in the library, Josh looks up and sees him. They lock eyes with each other. And immediately shit kicks off. You know, they're arcing up back and forth across the library, yelling out to each other, "Come here, motherfucker, I'll do this and that," you know? They're really going in on each other. And so I say to Josh, "Bro, if anything goes down, I got you, don't even worry. It's gonna be all good, this kid won't touch you." But anyhow, I ate my words shortly after. Johnson walks down the stairs and starts getting up in Josh's face. At which point I step in and I say, "Fuck off, like, you know, you don't want to do this, you don't want this, you don't want to smoke," that type of thing. And he says to me, "What the fuck are you gonna do?" Now this shocked me, bro, because I was 6'1" at the time, and this kid would have been no taller than 5'4", and he would have been like 40 kilos wringing wet, right? So I had like 30 kilos on this kid and a solid few inches of height. But nonetheless, he says, "What the fuck are you gonna do?" And it's in this moment that I freeze up. Now, I didn't freeze up because I was scared or because I was intimidated by this kid. It was because I genuinely didn't know what to do. In this split second, I could not make the decision fast enough. You know, I'd just gotten back from being suspended. So what happens next? They start feeding each other, okay? Johnson goes in on Josh straight away. I'm just stood there not knowing what to do. If I break this up, even if I get slightly involved, instant suspension. And I was almost certain that at the time, that would mean expulsion for me. I'm not too sure, but I believe it would have been. Okay, so they're feeding each other, but it doesn't last very long. You know, teachers are pretty quick to break it up. Yo, brother, if you're enjoying this story, please do me a massive favor and hit the subscribe button. You have no idea how much it helps me out. But with that said, I will let you get back to the video. And so after this, Johnson and Josh both get sent to the deputy's office. And to sum it up, they both get suspended for, I believe, 2 weeks. And I remember after the whole suspension went on, the deputy starts really pushing for Josh to be sent to a school for kids with learning difficulties, you know, which Josh wasn't, by the way, but she just clearly did not want him at our school. And the way she framed it was, you know, she was looking out for him. It was in his best interest. But I knew for a fact this woman just didn't want to have to deal with his shit anymore, okay? And bro, this really pissed me off because I could see through that instantly. As soon as I heard that she wanted to move him to a different school, I just knew that she was full of shit, that she didn't actually give a fuck about him. She was just sick and tired of it. I knew the life that Josh had had, you know, abusive, alcoholic mother, full of neglect. He didn't grow up in a 2-parent home. It was a very broken home. House got burned down. Everything that could go wrong in Josh's life had gone wrong. So I really felt for this motherfucker, like I've mentioned in so many videos before. I'm gonna have to turn the flash on just a sec. And bro, the one thing that Josh actually seemed to enjoy, like the one time I would see this motherfucker's face lit up, was when he was hanging out with us boys on the weekend, no matter whose house it was at, or at school. Josh genuinely seemed to enjoy school when he was hanging around with his mates. You know, he actually got to interact with people because I feel it gave him an escape from what his home life was like. It may just be my opinion, but this is genuinely what I observed, okay? He will definitely see this video and he will back me if that is the case. So anyhow, this woman's really pushing for him to move schools. And I remember there was this one day where I sort of flipped my shit with her. You know, I said to her, like, "It's not fair you're trying to get him to move schools. You clearly don't give a fuck about him. You're just sick of having to deal with his shit." And, you know, she was going back and forth with me, telling me that it was in his best interest. And I ended up saying some things to her which get me into a lot of trouble. And I remember after this, I was set off really easily, okay? And I had this feeling at the time this feeling of powerlessness, okay? I felt like I didn't have any power in the situation of, Josh moving schools. I didn't have any power in that situation of, Josh getting hammered and me not being able to do anything about it. And so I started, I guess, acting out as a sort of coping mechanism, if you will. I remember this one day that really sticks out to me in particular. We had this really sort of old school, old fashioned sort of teacher who went by the books of like old school teaching. She was growing up when the cane was around type of thing. So I was already not having a good day this day, and this woman just starts, being really disrespectful to me. She's getting really angry at me. I'm doing my work, but for whatever reason, she's just, insult after insult to me. And I end up walking out of her class and calling her a bitchy old cunt. And I believe I get like a 3-day suspension. But it gets to about October, and by this point, the deputies really sort of set all of these moves into place, getting ready for Josh to move school. And so I'm just trying to deal with it as best as I can. Once again, I feel powerless. There's nothing I can do to fix this situation or to change it. It's like, this is what's happening. It's adamant, okay? Josh's mum signed off on it. Like I said, she wasn't a good mum. And the deputies signed off on it. Josh had no say. I couldn't do anything, okay? But that's when it gets to around mid-October. I'm at the gym training one day with my brother, and I receive a message from my girlfriend telling me that she's late. I ask her by how much, and she tells me a week, okay? And she starts, telling me she's been Googling this and that, she thinks it could be this, it could be that. And so I reassure her, this is perfectly normal. It could be stress, it could be hormones, it's fine. Just chill out, it's gonna be completely fine, I promise you. But in the back of my mind, I was actually sort of, I was concerned, I was stressing out because this could actually be something serious, So anyhow, I finish up my workout, but the only thing that is on my mind is, am I going to be a father, okay? So I jump in the car with my brother, and he can tell something's off, okay? So as we're driving, he says, like, are you all good, bro? Like, you've been a bit weird this afternoon. Like, did something happen today at school? And I tell him, nah, it's all good. I'm just super tired. I think I might be getting sick or something. So, he says, okay. I get home that night, have some dinner, call my girlfriend. We sort of talk it over a little bit, and I try and calm her nerves. I managed to calm her down, but I am still stressing, okay? So, goes without saying, I don't really get much sleep that night. I would literally say like 2-3 hours, because I'm up all night thinking, how different is my life going to be with the addition of a child, okay? And anyhow, I get to school the next day. I'm feeling a little bit better, feeling super tired, obviously. Hang out with my girlfriend for the day, and we sort of come to the conclusion that we absolutely have to do something to get some level of certainty, some result as to whether, we're having a child or not having a child. So I go home that afternoon and I make the decision that I'm going to talk to my eldest brother, Scott, about this, right? Because he's 4 years older. So, he would know what to do in this situation, the older brotherly advice. So I talk to him about it. I ask him, what should I do in this situation? And as I'm telling him, he gets up off of his bed, walks over to the edge of the mattress, lifts the mattress up, and pulls a small box out from under his bed. He pulls something from it and he gives it to me. It's a test, okay? He tells me, it'll be all right, bro. Just get her to take this. I promise you, it will be nothing. And those words were like magic to my ear, bro, okay? Because that gave me the assurance that he knew what he was talking about. It gave me the assurance that I wasn't alone in this. Like, he could actually relate to me, okay? So I go to sleep that night, get a little bit more sleep, wake up the next day, go to school, meet up with my girlfriend first thing in the morning, and I hand it to her, She goes into the bathroom for all of about 10 minutes, but it felt like a fucking eternity. I'm telling you, I've never experienced the 10 minutes that felt longer than this in my life, okay? So I'm waiting and waiting. The only thought that is playing in my mind over and over again, that has been playing for the past 2 days straight, is I'm not ready to be a father. I'm not ready to be a father. I'm not ready to be a father. This is constantly what I'm telling myself. Sure enough, the 10 minutes finally goes by she sends me a Snapchat. The test is negative. Thank fuck for that. So anyhow, I get over this little period of my life. The deputy gets what she wants and Josh ends up moving school in, I believe, about November. I carry out the rest of the year just hanging out with my girlfriend, you know, kicking it with Josh and my best mate Crocker on the weekends. And I thought the, you know, high stress situations, the mistakes that I'd make in my life was sort of over, you know, the big mistakes, but there's plenty to come, as most of you will know. It gets to January of 2022. And by this point, my life is feeling super good, you know. I've just met my girlfriend's whole family on Christmas. My relationship's going super well. I'm kicking it with my boys just about every weekend. But it gets 7 days into the year, okay, so January 7th. And I received some very unfortunate news. My nan has just passed away after suffering from motor neuron disease for about 8 years. And it didn't hit me at first, bro, because, you know, she'd been suffering for so long, it wasn't something that really impacted me immediately. But of course, you know, I comfort my mum, it was her mum, so she's really impacted by it, as you would be. But a few days go by, and the, I guess, magnitude or the reality of the situation sort of sets in. This woman was pretty much like a second mum to me growing up. And so I do get this sort of wave of depression, if you want to call it that, or wave of just like sadness. And once again, I have that feeling of powerlessness, like I'm not in control. Nothing in my life is in my control. And that was a constant feeling that I would have. Okay, and as always, I'm not trying to sound like a victim or anything here, but I'm sure many of you can relate to just feeling like you have no control over your life, like you have no say, like it's your life, but you're not the one guiding where you go. And it was a constant feeling that I would have every single day as a teenager, right? And I'm gonna get to this in a sec. But anyhow, we go to the funeral, you know, and about a week later, my parents decide they're gonna go out of town, you know, and they start doing this a lot more after this point. But this particular weekend, I invite Josh around to my house, and this is where the parties kick off. That's the only way I can really describe them. You know, I'd have my mates around, we just get, we get super, you know, ash up, and they're parties. That's pretty much the only way I can describe them, okay? And I mean, I guess in some regard, it was because I was just a teenager looking to have some fun. But in another way, I could also attribute some of the want or the need to do that to this feeling of powerlessness and wanting to feel like the one in control, wanting to be in that high energy state all the time. And if I look back, honestly, bro, this is where everything sort of really started, you know, the poor choices which ultimately led to me getting arrested. That's a whole nother story in itself. But I would definitely say this is where everything kicked off that led up to that very, very poor decision, which completely changed the trajectory of my life, okay? So all of these high stress situations that kept on happening so close together led to this constant feeling of powerlessness. And instead of focusing on the things that I genuinely could control, you know, my health, my well-being, the things that I said, the relationships which I had, I was focusing on the things that I couldn't, which is what led to that feeling, okay? And bro, I know so many people can relate to this feeling. Feeling like you've got no direction in life, feeling like you don't know where you're going, and just feeling like you do not have control, you haven't got your shit figured out. You've just gotta let go, bro, honestly. If I could go back and speak to my younger self, the one thing I would tell him, as cliche as it does sound, take a breath and let go, bro. It's gonna be the best thing that you can do for yourself. Stop focusing on the little shit, the things that you can't control. I can't control whether someone in my family dies, whether something, you know, whether a global disaster happens, whether World War III breaks out. That's not in my control. I can't control whether my girlfriend is pregnant, but I can control whether or not she gets pregnant in the future by the actions, okay? I can reflect on my past decisions and say, okay, that wasn't the best decision for me to make at the time. Here's what I'm gonna do in the future to make sure that the result which I don't want to happen will not happen. And once I started looking at it that way, everything in my life just became so much more clear, and I had that direction. I didn't feel powerless because I understood that if I focus on the things that I can control, that does put me in power. We don't just experience life, we experience the life that we focus on. Tony Robbins. That's one of the smartest pieces of advice which I've ever received. If you focus on the negative things or the things that you can't control, you will only experience negativity and a lack of control. But if you focus on the life, you focus on positivity and the things you can control in life, then that is the life that you will experience. The longer you hold on to things, the less life you are going to experience. Sometimes we have to let go of what has happened and not worry about what's going to happen in order to become our best selves. Okay, so I'm going to leave you with that today. I really do hope this video helped you in some way. It is truly my mission to change 1 million lives in my lifetime. So with that said, I will see you in the next one. Hit the subscribe button. Stay grinding, bro.